This is Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.
I shudder thinking how the world can be so cruel. I lend my voice to those who can't. It's time we try, it's time we care, it's time we stand. It starts with a voice.
Welcome back to the Special Chronicles Podcast, where we're giving respect and voice to people with special needs. I'm your host, Daniel Smrokowski, and founder of Special Chronicles. And today we've got a truly empowering episode for you. We're joined by now three-time guest, Rob Snow, comedian, speaker, and the brilliant creator behind the Improvaneers, the world's first all-Down syndrome improv troupe, and the innovative Improvaneer Method, as well as his co-worker Nick Doyle, who is part of this troupe. We will hear how a simple conversation sparked a movement, how improv is transforming lives and perceptions, and get an exciting sneak peek at the upcoming film that's sharing this story with the world. This episode is brought to you by our friends at the ComEd Energy First Ambassador Program, the nation's first energy efficiency and solo education program designed for and taught by people with disabilities. Learn more at SpecialChronicles.com/ComEd, and by United Airlines Bridge Disability Business Resource Group, connecting people of all abilities. Learn more at SpecialChronicles.com/United. And you can find today's show notes and more at SpecialChronicles.com. To subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on social media, and all of that. And now, please put your virtual hands together as we dive into today's incredible conversation with Rob Snow and Nick Doyle. Welcome to Special Chronicles.
Welcome. I love it. Great intro.
Thank you. And as we said, for those of you listening, and if you join Special Chronicles Plus, SpecialChronicles.com/plus, you can watch the pre-show and get a little. We break down that fourth wall of the studio, and you guys can hear when Rob and Nick join the studio, the virtual studio here. But Rob, this is you are now a three-time guest.
Yeah. How about that? I didn't know that. You said that, and I was sitting here thinking, boy, I haven't heard from Daniel in a while. Maybe he's forgotten about me. And here, I think I now have the record, right?
Yes. I still follow your Facebook page and Instagram, and when I saw that you have this new film and you guys are going on tour, I thought, well, listeners definitely need to hear about this excellent program.
Yes. I'm so glad you called and got in touch with me, because I love being on here and just love everything that you do, Dan. So
awesome. Thank you. And I'll listen. I believe about a couple years. No, it was last year. Sorry, last year. I can't keep the episode straight. Last year, there was a comedian, Dustin Nicholson, and my girlfriend and I saw him at the Zanies in Rosemont, and we talked about inclusive comedy, and so it's a good kind of tie-in with that episode. And the last time that you were in the studio, I think I was in my bedroom, and you saw all the notes, and I think there might have been a poster of you in the room. Maybe I don't.
Yeah, a little weird, Dan. You're keeping posters up in the room. I don't know.
That is weird.
Look, Nick's got a poster of me up in the room too.
I do.
But I got posters of Nick, so he's behind me everywhere.
Well,
I'm everywhere.
Now I actually have a poster of my girlfriend Georgia and I here in the studio. So yeah, a little better.
That one's better. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So why don't we get started? And Rob, take us back to early 2018. Can you share the moment that sparked the creation of the Improvaneers?
Yeah.
The last time that, and our listeners can go back in the archives on SpecialChronicles.com and search for your name. And the last time we talked about Stand Up for Downs, and I forgot what the other. Yeah, I think that was the last couple of times you were on.
Yeah, Stand Up for Downs. I think I was doing a show called Minimize the Mountain or We Need a Sign. And I was doing a one-man show around the country and things. So, so the Improvaneer Method started right around 2018 when I used to do stand-up comedy and improvisation in Chicago when I lived there. And that was in the late 90s. When I studied at Second City and a place called Improv Olympic and a place called the Annoyance Theater, all really amazing, great theaters for improvisation. And then I kind of gave it up after about 4 years. I gave up the comedy and acting and improv altogether. And I stopped for about 8 years. And then we moved from Chicago back to Cleveland, Ohio, where I'm from. And that was around 2009. And I started doing stand-up comedy again, just for fun. I wasn't doing it for any career, or I had a good day job. And it was just fun. And I was doing like open mics and guest sets places. And then that same year we had our second son, Henry, who was born with Down syndrome. And so those two things kind of collided in that year, and we got very involved in the Down syndrome community and disability community. And then I'm doing comedy. And so those two things kind of collided. And that's kind of informed or been a part of my life since that year, both of those things. And so my wife and I, around 2012, started Stand Up for Downs, where we just produce comedy events and raise money for different Down syndrome related, organizations and causes. And then around 2018, and I kept doing some comedy, and then I turned it into a one-man show where I performed all around the country, which, it was, what was it? It was like raising a child with, developmental disabilities, commonalities we share, and a bunch of laughs were in there, and, things like that, a couple tears, but, and so I had done that, and that was a lot of fun. And I still do that from time to time. And then I was reminded by a friend who she was pregnant with triplets at the time. And then she had two other girls also under the age of 5. So she was about to have 5 kids. And we were just having a good time talking. And she used to do improvisation. And she used to also teach special education. And I said, if you weren't doing this, for the rest of your life, probably, what would you want to be doing? And she said, I always wanted to teach improvisation to people with developmental disabilities. And I said, why is that? And she goes, oh my gosh, imagine the possibilities. And it blew my mind. And I was sort of like, my immediate thought was like, of course. Why didn't I think of this? I studied improvisation. I know exactly what it could do for people with developmental disabilities. And so we talked a little more, and I said, look, I'm stealing your idea. Okay. And she goes, Rob, look at me. I'm not doing anything with it anytime soon. So take it away. And so I credit her everywhere I go. Her name's Katie Belanca. She's the best. But so she was really the one who kind of gave me the idea. And then I was in Detroit at the time, and I drove home from her house. It was about 3 hours, and I didn't turn on the radio once. And this just blew up in my mind. And so I brought it back home, and we started just doing classes once a month for like 2 hours at a place called Gigi's Playhouse, and which is out of Chicago. The headquarters are in Chicago, and we do a lot of stuff with Gigi's now. And we perform for them. We're doing a workshop with them now, or an online class. So they've been amazing to work with and really supportive. But it started at this Gigi's in Cleveland, which had also just started, by the way. So we did it once a month. And I remember, here's what the big change, because I was just throwing like everything I could think of at them, from a game standpoint. Every game I remembered, I was scouring books about improv and like, okay, what game works and what's happening with this game? What am I teaching? What skills are being developed? And it was about 5 months into it. So we'd only had 5 classes, doing it once a month. And we had this young man who had a dual diagnosis of Down syndrome and autism. And he only said 3 words in class. He said, Tony, Tiger, and yeah. And his name was Tony. I mean, those are the 3 words, Tony, Tiger, and yeah. And he was just really, kind and a gentle soul and just sweet. And he'd just be in class, and do his best. And, at the time I kind of went, well, I don't know if Tony's going to get much from this, but we'll see. And so about 5 months in, and then I got a call from the site coordinator, the person who ran that site, that Gigi's site. And I was in an airport in Charlotte, North Carolina. And she goes, Rob, I got to tell you this story. I was just over at Tony's house dropping some things off. And I went up to the door and Tony answered and he gave me a big hug. And he was wearing his, at the time we called it, it was just a Stand Up for Downs t-shirt. He's wearing his Stand Up for Downs t-shirt and he gives me a big hug, which was not something Tony did. Like a lot of folks with autism, sometimes touch isn't like the main thing that they do. And so he did, though. He gave her a big hug. And then he started to talk. He said, Tony want to be actor. Tony go downtown, Playhouse Square, be actor. Tony get into Cleveland, go act. Tony want to win awards, acting. Lots of words, right? He had only said 3 words. And so the parents came up and the woman said, what has gotten into Tony? And they said, that class. He can't stop talking since that class began. And so it was really just are you there?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm there.
I went to a different screen, but
no, I'm just reading the layout as we talk.
Got it. No, I'm sorry. So that was the moment. And I was in the airport and I'm trying to find a hole to go cry in somewhere because I was so just emotionally moved knowing that, because here I that was proof. It was like, okay, it works. And I came back home and I said, okay, we're going to do once a week. We're going to cast a troupe of dedicated individuals who are going to be a part of this. And so I put that together around 2018, March of 2018. We cast about 25 individuals. I wanted to start in the Down syndrome community because my son has Down syndrome. So I'd known Down syndrome. That's sort of my wheelhouse. And about 25 people auditioned, including the young man who's on this call we'll get to soon, I imagine, who's anxiously waiting to talk. But and I cast 10, which was a really hard thing to do, so you can imagine. But I said, okay, I'm going to take these 10 individuals and they're going to commit. They're going to give me 2 hours a week for 2 years. And we're just going to study it. We're going to see what works, what doesn't work, what skills are being developed, how we're going to create the development of these skills, how we're going to build this program. And that's all we did. And so that's kind of the origin of it. We studied it for 2 years. These guys put on a huge show. You can see my poster, where one of these posters behind me, or Nick's got it behind him. And we performed that show in July of 2019, I think, right, Nick? And yep. And crushed it, like unbelievable. It was another just huge moment for me of watching these guys it was like I was watching, trained Broadway actors up there doing improvisation and sketch comedy. And And then we got a lot of press, local press and national press, Washington Post, TodayShow.com, Inside Edition did a big piece on us. And we were ready, man. We were booked like everywhere. And that was at the end of 2019. So what happened at the beginning of 2020, Dan?
Yeah.
Do you remember? A little thing called COVID, yes, pandemic happened, and it canceled all of it. So everything we were booked for got canceled, and I was like, "Oh my God! Like, are you kidding me?" And I thought we had just a runaway hit. I thought, and then somebody mentioned Zoom to us and said, "You should do this on Zoom." And I said, "Yeah, great. What is Zoom?" And,
Yeah.
right. And then they were like, "Yeah, you should do it online." And I go, "Gosh, it's really, it's meant to be done live." And, I don't know. I don't think you could really teach improv like this, online like this.
But here we are.
But here we are. Look at us. We're doing a podcast online. Yeah. But that was really it, because I kind of, out of desperation, I looked at it and I said, okay, well, what if I did? And I transferred about 75% of our games to an online way of teaching them. And honestly, that saved us, because we were able to really understand our program better. We were able to slowly build it and create, really like a whole textbook around this. We have a full 3-year agenda to build somebody's skills. There's level 1, level 2, level 3, and we couldn't have done that without doing it through Zoom first, and really a lot of trial and error. And so I'll fast forward to now, and then you can ask your next question. But we're at 30 online classes a week that goes all over the country, including Canada. I don't know, it's 500 to 750 Improvaneers that have taken. There's over 1,000 that have actually taken our classes. We've probably done workshops in front of the neighborhood of 10,000 different people and individuals. And these guys have performed. That original cast has now performed about 85 or 90 times around North America. We've licensed the program now. We have about 15 states, different locations in different states that have licensed the program, where we certify directors so they get to teach it there. It's almost like a franchise. And Bowling Green University, major university, has done a full research study on us. We have a program in Australia that just started, and now we're making a documentary.
Yeah. Awesome. So to bring Nick into Nick, can you share? Because I think at the top of the program you said that you were one of the first participants. So comic or actor, though, I don't what you. Yeah, can you share with us, Nick, how you got introduced to Rob and the Improvaneer method, and how you got started doing this?
Yeah,
improv?
So I met Rob at Brisbane Playhouse in Akron, Ohio, and I asked him if I could be on his board with Stand Up or Downs, right? To be a self-advocate.
Well, Nick, first the audition, because I didn't know Nick, but even though coincidentally we're both from the same hometown.
Canton, Ohio.
And I never knew Nick, but he came in for the audition and blew us away. So that was first. He got accepted into the Improvaneer Method. And then after a few months of performing, now go ahead, Nick. You asked me to be on the board.
I asked to be on this board to be a self-advocate, right? And he said, we can use you. Actually, I want to use you. I want someone to represent the Improvaneer Method. Well, guess what? Here I am. The big dog himself is on the board. And so I was, because I have a cousin named Kim, and she's on the board as well.
Awesome.
And
Awesome,
I
awesome.
loved it.
Yep.
So
Awesome.
we are the first ever all Down syndrome improvisation group. And you're talking to the original cast of them.
Awesome. That really excited. Similarly to the work that you guys did, I had a filmmaker on this podcast quite a few years ago who made a documentary about a group of young men with Asperger's, and I'm blinking. I've got the DVD in my other room, and I
Asperger's are us.
Yes, Asperger's are us. Yeah. So did any and it's been quite a few years since I've watched that film, but did the work of Asperger's are us and this troupe, did any of that play into starting the Improvaneer Method and this comedy troupe?
No, but it was an inspiration. So I had already started the Improvaneer Method at that time, and then I saw the movie and I went, "Oh my gosh, these guys are good!" And I hadn't actually thought, because Asperger's, I don't think they call it Asperger's anymore, but
autism, right?
It's on the autism spectrum, or they put it back on the autism spectrum. So, and at the time we were, purely Down syndrome. So I was like, oh, this is cool. These individuals with autism are also doing this. I didn't feel any like competitive. I was like, I'm always like, if anybody's sort of doing what we're doing or anything like it, I'm excited, because I go, yeah, anything to get individuals with developmental disabilities to express themselves and, find these creative elements of themselves and build their abilities. It's just tremendous. Yeah. I mean, we'd love it all, but as long as there's some venue that's doing it. But I thought that was just really cool and terrific, a film. And so no, I was just inspired by it and would love to meet those guys, but maybe not that we could.
Yeah. Also, and it'll be interesting to see if you guys do some type of show together or some type of act together. You mentioned a conversation with a friend who had a dream to teach improv to those with special needs. How did that go a little bit more in depth with how that conversation changed your life and your career path? And then, as you said at the top of the program, you studied with legendary improv schools like Second City and IO. What were the key skills that you learned that you thought could benefit individuals with developmental?
Yeah. Well, I always think about this time that I was taking these classes, and I was this young hotshot, and I was pretty good at it, actually. But what I realized was, and I was really cocky about it, because one, you got to have some cockiness or some confidence at least to get on stage and tell jokes. It is a hard thing to do. And so that was my stand-up piece of it. And I was a decent actor, and I'd be in these classes and I'd be like, usually, the best one in the class, or one of the top one or two in the class. And I thought that was pretty good. And I thought for sure somebody was going to discover me and put me on a sitcom. And then you go, after a year, you graduate at Second City, you graduate into the next level. Well, then you go, oh, wait, there's other levels here. So yeah, I was real good on the beginner level, but now I'm on the intermediate level, or I'm in the better. Now I've got people in class who are like starting to get as good or even better than me. And so now my confidence is starting to go, whoa, boy, okay. So, but I remember this thing though, at where in those beginner classes, again, I'm 24, 25 years old, and in walks some 50-some-year-old guy, right? And to me, which was like the oldest guy in the world to me, because, I'm like, what's this old guy in this class for? Well, now guess what? I'm now over 50. So I'm the old guy. But so he walks in and he's in my class, taking my class. And I asked him one day, he was a great guy, by the way, but I asked him, I said, well, what are you doing in this class? And he goes, oh, yeah, my company just thought it'd be great, would loosen me up a little bit. And I always think about that guy, because what that company did was they wanted to give him skills, and they thought improv could do that. They wanted, maybe he was sort of quiet at work, or maybe he wasn't, he needed some help being more creative or something, or, talking to people easier or better. And they go, why don't you go take an improv class and see if that helps you a little bit? Well, I sort of have that still. And even from that conversation with my friend Katie, who introduced me to this idea, like, those were kind of the two thoughts I always had. I was like, this guy was just in there to build skills. I didn't think about that when I took improv class. I thought about becoming an actor and becoming famous, all of that. But this guy was there for a whole other reason, just to produce skills. So when I really thought about this program, I thought, what skills can we develop in this program? So if you're ready for it, Dan.
Yes.
There are 10 skills that we have identified. And I'm pretty sure that Nick is gonna rail off every one of these. Because Nick is also my national sales executive, though. National sales director.
Yes, I am his national sales director. I'm a keynote speaker and a auctioneer as well.
Yeah.
So for the key skills that I learned is trick and creative thinking, listening, focus, problem solving, adapting to change, eye contact, and focus, teamwork, and a huge increase in self-confidence. And you're talking to a guy that has confidence.
If you couldn't tell, I think you got them all, Nick. Voice projection, did we get that one?
I forgot that one, voice projection.
Okay, I think that's the only one you forgot. You always nail them.
I did.
Yeah, so those are the 10 skills. I mean, those are pretty good skills. So you think about in a job situation, the reason we teach improvisation is to build those skills so we can greatly increase social workplace, time,
opportunities for not only Down syndrome, but for all abilities.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sorry, I'm making some notes here. Just like what you and Nick, you shared about how you're building skills through this Improvaneer Method and this troupe. Once you had the idea, what were the first steps that you took to bring the Improvaneers to life? How did you go to select the first team members like Nick here? What was the audition process like? And then what role did Maggie Pizzoe play in developing the program and working with the team?
So what was the audition process like?
Yeah, what was the first steps that you took to bring the Improvaneers to life, and the audition process like?
Well, we had to have, after Gigi's Playhouse, they were not going to be able to do it on a weekly basis, which is what I wanted to do. And so I had to find a venue to do that. And we found this one in Akron, Ohio called the Weather Vane Playhouse. And Weather Vane has been our home ever since. It's been our main home ever since. It's a community playhouse. So they've got a theater in there that seats about 300 people. They've got a side theater that we can work with, and then they've got a bunch of studio rooms. and they are just the greatest people ever and have never charged us a dime to use it or anything. And so I found the venue, and then I sent out, like an audition, call through social media. And that's when I got like the 25, 26 people to do it. And so, that was really the process. And then these 25 people, and then we just sat there afterwards. So like originally I had brought in an improviser and comedian that I knew from locally, and he helped me kind of get it started and give me some good ideas. And so we sat there and watched these guys audition. Maggie Bissesi was somebody who found us through a connection with her mom, and my wife had worked together on something, and she had done improvisation at Kent State. And so she just volunteered for us for a little while until I hired her. And now she doesn't work full time for us, but she still directs 1 or 2 classes online for us. But that was really it. And then these 10, it was so hard. I mean, Nick was easy. Nick was like, as soon as he came in, I was like, oh boy, this guy's in. But it started to get down to that like 8, 9, 10 selection. And we probably had about 6 or 7 people that we were considering for those last 3 spots. And I don't think any of the parents knew what this would become, and I didn't know what it would become either. But, now we're at 6 of the original cast members still perform. And then we promoted 1 up who had been through a number of levels, and we just thought she was terrific. So there's 7 of them now that perform all over the country. Originally it was 10, and, 1 just wasn't really going to make the program. 1 unfortunately passed away. And then another one kind of bailed out as well. And just, it wasn't right for her after a while. So, but it's left us with this, it's an easier group to manage, only 7 people versus 10. So it's been just really incredible. I mean, these parents, we've been on, podcasts like this. We've been on local TV station. We've been on national TV station. We've had, all these shows, 85 shows, every big conference, from the National Down Syndrome Conference to, Special Olympics events and we just performed. We just,
I don't
know. What's that?
Cleveland. We performed it.
Yeah, we performed at a thing called Cleveland Fringe Fest on last Thursday. And this is where we're starting our tour, which I guess we'll get into. But
yes.
So we've just been performing, and I can get more into the performances.
Yeah.
But as an exciting one, this last weekend, we were at the Best Buddies Conference.
Yeah, in Indiana.
Yes. Have you ever been?
Yeah. So in 2017, I spoke. They had me come out and speak, and then I ended up doing a podcast also with Anthony Kennedy Shrivo. And then I think the year after that, our mutual friend Brian Donovan from Colors Hollywood.
Yeah.
I think he spoke at it the year after I was speaking there. So and the funny thing is, as you know, I'm one of the first Special Olympics athletes that United Airlines hired. Yeah, and so at the working at the airport in Chicago, and just this past Friday, I was helping board a flight to Indianapolis, and I saw all these people with Best Buddies T-shirts, and so I'm sure that when I was telling them, have fun at the leadership conference, and I'm sure the customer service agents will probably be like, what is going on? What's going on? But as soon as I saw them, I knew. So it was neat that to see all these young people going to Indianapolis.
Yeah, and unfortunately for those people who wouldn't know what the Best Buddies Conference was all about, you're missing out, because that was the most incredible thing we've ever done, right, Nick?
It was too. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. So for those of you that are just tuning in, if you go on SpecialChronicles.com, do a search for the Bus Buddies Leadership Conference, and you can listen back to some podcasts I've done with Anthony and other people at the Bus Buddies Leadership Conference. That was where I first got to meet Megan Baumgars from the show Born This Way.
Yep.
I had just had her on the podcast, and then 2 months later, I ended up meeting her in person. So that was a lot of fun. Moving right along, because I know we still have a bunch to get to about the film. So for those of you tuning in, you do not want to miss the rest of this conversation today. The Improvaneer Method, can you explain to us a little bit more about what the Improvaneer Method is? How is this different from traditional improv training? And then a little bit more about the social and communication skills that participants like Nick clearly are learning.
Yes, so using improvisation is to build skills that is greatly increased in our social, workplace, and lifetime opportunities for people with all abilities. And we have all kinds of live and online classes we got to offer. Performances, one-on-one classes, you name it. We're trying to certify trainers to be certified directors. And our founder and CEO of this whole thing is Rob Snow. He's the one that created this company. And believe it or not, since I'm on the board of Stand Up or Downs, I am the Stand Up or Downs vice president, and Rob's wife, Anna Snow, is the president of Stand Up for Downs as well.
Yeah, and so thanks, Nick. See, that's why he's my national sales executive. The different, you asked about like some of the differences of this program from other programs similar to it. So improv is not, it's an easy concept, it's really, you're thinking of things off the cuff on the spot. You don't have a script. And the other concept is you have to yes and everything, which means that's a big phrase in improv is yes and, which means anything that's brought to us when we're performing or on stage, we agree with, we say yes to. And then the and is, and we're going to add to it. So yes, and we're going to add so that we create a very visual and big scene. If it was the other way, if it was like no, if somebody came on stage and said, oh my gosh, did you see all the aliens have landed? And you went, no aliens have landed. Well, that sort of destroys the scene, right? But if I was like, oh my gosh, yes, and they're looking for all of our ice cream. Now you've got something to go on, right? Now you've got a fun scene you're going to do. So that's what improv is. But I wanted it to be different in a number of ways, because really what I wanted to make sure that it was about, it wasn't just let's get a bunch of people, with developmental disabilities in a room and get them to explore this kind of acting and explore their creativity. It was very purposeful. It was, we're going to explore this so you can build, like Nick said, build these skills so you can get a better job. Because I think, unfortunately in this world with developmental disabilities, and as you have seen, Dan, and I'm sure as you have experienced in your life, because Dan, you're one of like the smartest people I know. And I think honestly, you are like this, this wizard of a reporter and journalist. And like, you think of things, you can just sit here and remember everybody's questions. And, you have a disability. And I think, and what people would tend to do is kind of to see like your disability or Nick's, and then they pigeonhole you and they go, oh, well, they might hire you, but then they go, oh, but we'll have them stack food in the back, or we'll have them wash dishes over here. And I call it pigeonholing. That's a common expression, but it means they're placing you in an area where they think you're going to fit because they've just by your looks or by the way you sound or whatever it is. And it's not accurate, because if that was the case, Dan, you said, I don't know your whole story. I know some of it, but like you said, no. I'm a lot more than whatever jobs these people are giving me out there. I'm going to start my own podcast. It's going to be wildly successful. I'm going to have all the, and you just did that. And so, kudos to you, but it sort of pisses me off. I'm sorry if I can't say pisses, but
no, that's fine.
It sort of pisses me off that a company doesn't think that first. Like, there's always this expression in the disability world, which is assume competence. And what that means is, don't look at somebody who has a disability or a developmental disability and assume that they can't understand you or they can't do certain things. Assume competence off the bat. So like Nick, he worked in a grocery store for 11 years before he started with us. And after he started with us, he looked at his job in the grocery store. And at that time, the manager had started to move him more in the back, just not even knowing, just, again, looking at him and pigeonholing him. Meanwhile, Nick was this incredible customer service guy. He was up there, whether it was bagging groceries or helping people with their carts or helping people with food, whatever it was customer facing, which was brilliant for him because he's exceptional at that. But they put him in the back and he started to hate that. And he quit the job after 11 years. And I said, Nick, why did you quit the job? And what did you say to me, Nick?
It's beneath me.
It's beneath me, it was my favorite words I think I've ever heard in my life, because he made that determination and he said, no, this is beneath me. I can do better. And you've heard his resume. So from then he joins the cast. He's a national public speaker. He spoke a keynote address over 20 times in the last 2 years. It's exceptional, by the way, if anybody's out there listening. It's I'm a keynote speaker. It buries me. It is so exciting. It is so fun to watch. It's this journey of ups and downs in Nick's life that are really traumatic and big. But my point is that this is the problem with disability in America, is when we don't assume competence or we pigeonhole people. And so what I always wanted to try to do with this program was to make sure that we were building abilities where people could achieve their dreams and that meet their abilities in a much better way. Okay. Like I told my son when he was in 4th grade practicing basketball in the backyard, he goes, Dad, you think I'm ever going to make the NBA? And I go, no. And he goes, wait a minute, you're supposed to say yes. I was like, no, not a chance.
Wow.
He goes, why would you say that to me? Why would you kill my dreams like that? And I go, well, first of all, the physical limitations of the Snow family aside, the fact that you're probably not going to get above 5'11". Secondly, I go, we've been out here for maybe 20 minutes and you're kind of ready to go in. I go, I don't see cones on the driveway. I don't see you getting up at 5 a.m. and dribbling through cones and coming home after school and working another 3 hours at it. And I mean, the reality was, I said that, kind of jokingly to him, but very real. Like, no. Now, if he would have said at any point in his life, Dad, you think I could ever be a comedian, or do you ever think I could be an actor? I go, yeah, you're good at that stuff. Like that is what you have passion for. But I think we all need that opportunity to meet our abilities, whatever those abilities are, and to work to those abilities. So that I wanted to create a program that could do that.
I love what you said about that, and I hope a lot of companies will, maybe anybody will listen to our conversation today. What you said is, also I'm right now for the past few I'm working on co-writing a book with a pilot of where I work with my other job. Can't get into a lot of details right now.
Man.
But hopefully within the next year we'll be able to announce this. But Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's been hopefully it's the first of a few books that I hope to write, but it's another dream. But with kind of speaking to that, and I'm going to come back to you, Nick, in just a moment, but on the same lines of that you said, Rob, about companies assuming and beyond the data, what stories from parents and employers and participants like Nick have struck with you the most about the impact of the Improvaneer method and this improv?
Yeah, great question. Love that question because it's the most important question. Like, does it work? How do you know it works, right? And I knew I needed to create a couple of ways to show that it would work. And I one's called the qualitative way of understanding it. The other is the quantitative way of understanding it. So like scientists and data people, and they always want to know quantitative because that has to do with numbers and data and, real information. And so they go, hey, the data doesn't lie. So I go, okay, well, how can I measure this and actually get some data around it? And so I worked with a woman she's a behavioralist out of the Children's Hospital of Cincinnati. Her name's Dr. Anna Espenson. And we worked together to kind of build like a way to measure it and put numbers behind it. So what we do in the very beginning, not the first class, but like the second or third class that somebody takes with us, we measure them on a scale of 1 to 5 in each skill set that Nick mentioned earlier. So like voice projection or eye contact or problem solving. And the way we measure them is we play a game. We play any game that has that included in it. So if we have a game that includes, trying to build like voice projection or eye contact, we'll play that game. And then the directors will give them a score of 1 to 5 on that particular skill set. So it might be eye contact. And they go, okay, during that game, Nick looked at his scene partner the whole time. He had great eye contact. He's a 5 on eye contact. Whereas his scene partner barely looked at Nick at all, only a couple times. So she's a 2 on eye contact. So you give them that score in the beginning. 1 or 5, they can do it completely. 1, they really can't do it at all. So if it was voice projection, they might be talking real low like this. You can't even hear them. Or they might be talking very loud and you can hear them very well. So if they were talking very low, it'd be a 1. And if they were talking very loud, you give them a 5. So I think you get it. So then we measure them again about a year later after they've taken the program for a year or however long they've decided to stay in the program. And we measure them again. Same games, same skill sets. And then we give them the scores again. So now they could, in the beginning, they might have had a 1 in voice projection, but now they're like at a 3. So they've increased that. Or in problem solving skills, they were at a 3 in the beginning. Now they're at a 4. So that's the way we started to measure this program quantitatively. So that's a very big difference to our program. I think you asked earlier, like, what's the difference in your program? So that's something that we do that I don't think anybody else really does out there that is working with people with developmental disabilities in using improv. So that's a very big difference in our program, that we can measure it in some way. And we can use real data to give you examples of that. So right now, the real data example is about a 67% increase in that skill set. So if you were at, that means if you were at a 2 in voice projection, you'd end up at a 4. So you're really building and growing in your skills. And I always tell parents, I'm like, some people will come into this program and you won't even recognize them after it. Like, it's so drastic how much they change. And then others, and many others, it's sort of more incremental. There's no one that's going to take our program that's either going to stay the same or backtrack in any of those skills. No one's going to lose any of their skills taking this program. Everybody's going to grow. Some just grow faster, some grow a little slower. So then the other one that I get most excited about, the way we measure this program to make sure it works, is the qualitative approach. And that gets to what you were saying, surveys, stories, case studies, things that are more qualitative. And by that, I mean, they're more from the heart. What are they saying? What does a parent tell me? And so I mentioned the one about Tony in the beginning, who said the 3 words. That was one story that really sticks to me. But there was another one that we did. I mean, Nick's story is incredible. But Nick sort of came in with like a lot of 4s and 5s on almost all of them. So Nick just really increased a lot of assertiveness. His confidence grew. He knew that he needed to find that seat at the table for him. And so that was, what Nick, what's your saying in your show? If there's not a,
so if there's not a chair at the table, bring your own chair.
Yeah, if there's not a seat at the table, bring your own chair, which is just such an awesome statement. Like, don't wait for there to be a seat at the table. Bring your own chair. And so, but there was another cast member named Teresa, and Teresa had has some challenges with articulation. You can't understand Teresa very well, but we knew we needed to put her in the cast because she just has this incredible personality. She walks in a room and it's just positive, positive, positive. She's the sweetest person ever. So Teresa's been with the cast. Well, she started a job at a fast food chain, and they had put her in the back room doing those things, washing dishes, stocking shelves, like things like that, right? And Teresa's a people person. Teresa has to be in front of people. And after a couple weeks, the manager noticed Teresa was not happy at all. And it's hard for Teresa to not be happy. And so he goes, okay, Teresa, why don't you go out and bust some of the tables, pick up the trays and, just go to the customers' tables and ask if you can, clear their table. And almost as soon as he did, he hears this laughter coming from the dining room of the restaurant. And I mean, at first he said his worst fear had come that like somebody was laughing at Teresa. But no, they were laughing with Teresa, and she was giggling with them, and they were hugging her like right away. And she was so happy again. And from then on, he put her out front, and she, cleared tables. She brought out food to customers. She waited with them while they, were waiting to get their food. She refilled drinks. All things that dealt directly with people. And he realized like that was her gift. And so, but this program had really taught her to do that better, to have that eye contact and voice projection. So those stories come in all the time. And I have a operational manager who runs most of this program. Her name's Liz, and she's amazing. And so I don't get to see it all as much as I used to when I was the only one running it. And I do still teach one class here in my local town. And then I now teach the performers like Nick more than I used to, much more than I had the last year because we're doing so much more. So I kind of put myself back in as the main director for them. But other than that, there's 7 or 8 live classes going on right now in Northeastern Ohio that I don't see those performers. I don't know those performers or the parents. I don't teach the classes. And we had a we had a big performance, a big holiday show over Christmas. And and 3 of the parents came up to me at different times during that show. And I had never met them before. And I had never seen their children perform. And they all cried. And they all said, this program has been done so much for my son, for my daughter. They don't even recognize them at work anymore because of this program and what they've done. And I tell you, Dan, that really moved me, because when you've stepped away from it a little bit, or when it's kind of just happening in front of you, you don't see these things as much. But to have a parent come up and tell me what it means to them, and that it's changed the life of their son or daughter is really just the most incredible, thing that can happen. So, yeah.
Awesome. Coming back to you, Nick, can you walk us through briefly, just because we've got just a little bit more to get to about the film coming up on the Special Chronicles podcast with our guest Rob and Nick from the Improvaneer Method and their new film that's coming up and their tour that they just started. But Nick, can you walk us through what your weekly training is, what some of the exercises and performance prep? Can you give us an example? I know we don't have a lot of time on the program today, but just can you, Nick, walk us through kind of from your perspective as one of the original improvers, part of the Improvaneer Method?
So yeah, we play a game called Click, and whatever topic comes to our heads, we just say them as fast as we can. And the key skills that we're doing that is listening, focus, and teamwork. So, for my how you say it?
Perspective.
Yes, thank you. I can't say it. So, my team, we do a 2-hour training, and we are on our feet constantly, and we are professional improvisers, right? So whenever we're on our feet, we have to do physical activity, attention to details, right? We have to use our imaginary stuff, use any kind of objects, right? So we don't have any props. We don't have any scripts. We just make it up right on the spot. And that's what Rob wants us to do. And we are doing it. And our Midwest tour, we call it Burn the Script Tour. And that's what we're going to do.
Awesome.
And so when we do our tour, I don't want us to be limited. I don't want us to change for nobody. I don't want us to show what everybody what we're made of. Yes, with Down syndrome, but we're not change our limits and don't limit us, because we here to make people laugh, and that's my key.
Awesome. I love that, Nick, and that ties in perfectly about don't limit us perfectly, Rob, with what you were talking about later, what you were talking about earlier in the program today, especially about a lot of companies and a lot of people outside of our disability community not putting limits on us and not assuming that we can do more. Coming back to you, Rob, how have you seen the public perception of people with Down syndrome, like Nick and the other performers that you work with, like my girlfriend Georgia, and others with developmental disabilities, shape a result of the troupe, and then kind of follow that up with how the Improvaneers have quickly gained national attention with major media outlets, and what it was like for them to watch this movement grow almost overnight. How have you kind of through the media and through others watching people like Nick and the Improvaneers, how have you seen the public perception of people with Down syndrome shifting?
Yeah, another good question. It shifts. I mean, audience to audience, it shifts. So that's kind of what got us into wanting to do this documentary, because whenever we do a show, there's always three audiences. There's the audience of individuals that have developmental disabilities that attend the show, and their reaction is like they're sort of in awe and inspired because they're seeing people like them do something so spectacular. So they're like, oh my gosh, I could do that, right? The second audience is those in the know, or what I say is in the club. So those would be like parents or siblings or people like loved ones of people with developmental disabilities, or, caregivers or teachers, like, people who've worked with people with developmental disabilities. And their reaction is like, finally, we're seeing what we already know, the capabilities of these individuals, right? So that's really cool too. But the third audience are those that really don't know a ton about people with, disabilities or developmental disabilities, haven't worked with them, aren't, related to them or close to anyone. And their reaction is sometimes a little offensive, only because, but it's awesome, because their reaction is, I didn't know they could do that. And so I only think it's a little offensive because I'm always like, well, you should have, sorry you never got that chance to know what they could do, but now you know. And that's the great part of it. That's why it's awesome, because they had a perception change. And that perception change is what is going to be the key to the rest of this world, right? The rest of our lives and the future of developmental disability is changing that perception. And that's the biggest key. And so, yes, and I'll segue, if you don't mind, into the film.
Yeah. I was just gonna have you segue into the film because it's a perfect.
Okay, good
connection.
Good segue. Okay, so because that's what I really wanted to do with this program too, is change those perceptions. I mean, like I said, we got to go beyond the pigeonhole and beyond that stereotyping of individuals, or that those people who aren't assuming competence. And if we can get there, man, the jobs that could happen, the worlds that can open up for people with developmental disabilities are enormous. The money they can make, they won't be relegated to the least paid employees at the company. They can advance in the company, all kinds of things. And so, and the world doesn't look down on, or the world doesn't pity, or the world doesn't go, there's that other thing in the disability community where they call, like the inspiration or the hero stuff.
Inspiration phone, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, look, it's lovely. It's awesome to see any person with a disability that's, elevated and is ultimately happy. You see it if the kid gets in the basketball game and shoots the last shot, but nobody's defending them, and, but they make the shot and the crowd goes wild. And it's like, yeah, but maybe he could have made that shot with people defending him, with like him being an actual player in the game. I don't think anybody wants free gifts out there. I think people want to earn what they, the accolades that they get, and the rewards. They want to earn those rewards. And I don't see that any different with people with disabilities. So we wanted to make this film, and it's called Burn the Script. Because of that, we wanted to change perception, and we wanted to do it by watching these 7 cast members achieve, and show abilities that most people don't think they can do. And it's a very unique thing, improvisation. It's a very hard thing to get up and do that. the audience is going to see this in a really incredible way. And also at the same time, alongside of this, we're going to show what's sort of happening in this world right now, Dan, where there are opportunities being limited for people with disabilities. There are resources, funding being limited for people with disabilities, whether it's Medicaid or programs that no longer can afford to exist. This is a problem. There's a very popular podcast, and it's in our trailer. There's a very popular podcast, just slightly more popular than yours somehow, Dan. I wish it were the other way around, but it was the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
And there's a quote that he says in there that the R word is back, and he says the R word. And people are laughing, and other people in this world are using the R word more. And there seems to be some level of acceptance that it's kind of coming back, where we thought it was all mostly going away. And that diminishes those individuals that you're referring to. And it diminishes their skills, their abilities. It allows people to treat them in a way that's not the same. And we're going to show that in the film. We're going to show all that. We're not grinding a political axe, because I don't find this to be a political thing. This is a decency thing. This is just there's 25% of this country has a disability, whether it's seen, unseen, physical, or cognitive. Okay. So it's not partisan. It's not Republican. It's not Democrat. It's not poor. It's not wealthy. It's not black. It's not white. It's not Hispanic. It's all of us. Disability doesn't discriminate. Anybody, rich, poor, you name it, can have a disability. And so we are showcasing that. And so we should all care about that, because even if you're not one of the people with a disability, you're probably in this extra, I would imagine, I don't have a number on this, but probably 50 to 75% of the rest of the people know, love, work with, care for, are friends with, family members with someone with a disability. So it's meaningful and it's important. And we're going to show that. And we're going to show this journey of the Improvaneers through a tour that they're doing, starting in Cleveland, Ohio. And it'll be, it's 6 shows and 6 nights. And, we're going to be in your town. You better be coming to our show. I'm confident.
You better come.
Yeah. And you better get people to come, but,
we'll definitely be, telling our audience. I know this episode's going live a few days before your show in Chicago, but thanks to our newsletter and social media, we'll definitely be sharing.
I'm going to tell you something. There's a show. So then the final. So there's a show that we're doing. So then we're going to go to Chicago. We're going to do 2 or 3 shows in Chicago, and then down to Cincinnati. We got 2 shows in Cincinnati, and then 1 show in Columbus. And then we'll be back home, but it'll be about 6 nights that we're gone. And along the way, we'll see what adventures we can get into. And I want to get the crew to, do all the Chicago things and hopefully eat or make an Italian beef and an Italian dog, the whole thing. But yeah, Nick, you don't have a problem with that. Yeah. So I want to do all that, but there's a show we're doing. I almost don't want to. Okay, I'll talk about it.
Yeah, do it. Come on.
It's at the IO Theater, which is that famous. It used to be called Improv Olympic, but it's super famous, and they're really known as one of the best theaters in the world for improvisation. And they were really excited about working with us on this, and we don't want to promote it much, but I think for your listeners, it'll be fine. But we won't really promote it because that night we're just going to be one of their house troupes. So every night they just have 3 or 4 of their house improv troupes perform for about 20 minutes each. And they're the best. They're the best of the best. And that night we're going to be one of those 3 or 4. And that audience, it's a free show that night. And that audience, the house will be packed, and hopefully nobody in that audience will know that these guys are performing. So the very first moment that they're going to know that there's an improv troupe made up entirely of individuals with Down syndrome is when they walk on stage. Right? So imagine that moment. And so you're going to get some interesting looks, and we'll be filming all these looks from the audience. You're going to get some people kind of like, like, what is going on? What, maybe some awkwardness. And then what I think I know is going to happen is that they're going to kill it. They're going to be amazing. And they're going to be up against these 3 other troupes that are professionals and the best of the best. And that audience is going to realize that these guys are just as good. Yeah. And that's going to be a really cool moment, because that's like the next night is a show that we're bringing in, we're advertising to people who, other groups like Gigi's Playhouse is advertising it, and other Misericordia might be advertising, like other groups that are friendly to the disability audience, right? Mm-hmm. But this night at Improv Olympic, it's not going to be, at IO Theater, it's not going to be that. It's going to be their real test to see how well they can do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I love that, and I love how you said that what you talked about earlier, how people like Nick, people like me, and those of us with developmental disabilities will limited in jobs, will limited in society, but the work that you and the Improvaneers are doing will hopefully, without getting too political, but hopefully it will show other leaders in the country that we can make just as much money as other people, and that will, in the past, it's been with government benefits, and with that, if hopefully this can start to kind of change perspectives to make it more equal and more fair with people without disabilities. Awesome. Just a little bit left to wrap up about this film and the Improvaneers. You mentioned global denomination. I'm jokingly, what
global domination, right?
Yeah. What does the future really look like for the Improvaneers? Expansion, franchises, and then what do you hope audiences will take away with this film?
You nailed the question. I've been on so many podcasts, and I'm telling you, man, like they don't ask nearly as good questions. Sorry to all the podcasts I've been on. But,
we now know what your favorite podcast, to be honest.
I've been on it 3 times. It must be.
My favorite.
Yeah. So, so I do joke about global domination, sort of. I mentioned we have a program in Australia, and it's funny. Just before this podcast, I just heard from the person running that did I say podcast? We have a program going on in Australia now, and I just heard from her. And she's ready to get this thing moved all across Australia and New Zealand, which is really funny. Just to even think about,
Yeah.
So yeah, sort of getting global domination is happening. But no, just to keep growing, I really think I want a couple things from the Burn the Script film, however it comes out. Right now we're, I'm not going to say that we've been sold or to, Netflix or HBO or whatever. That's our goal, of course. And I think, we've got a couple agents now working with us that are looking into all of that and seeing what kind of meetings we could set up. I think there's going to be a huge market for it. But from that, and if it takes off and becomes popular, or, either way, we're going to keep growing our our business. We've grown every year. We've expanded, into so many different areas, or in locations and things. We're now, all actually all abilities, as Nick said earlier, all abilities. So we'll kind of start a peer modeling, program similar to like Best Buddies or Buddy Up Tennis, if you've heard of that. So like, all those things would be great. There's a huge industry of teaching improvisation to people with Alzheimer's, the elderly who have Alzheimer's, because it's been shown to have really good effect on people with Alzheimer's. So we might jump into that a little bit. But I think with this film, as the major thing, we'd love to grow as a company. And I'd love every individual with any developmental disability to take this program, because I know the value that it will bring to them. Even nonverbal, we've created a program for nonverbal, but it's the perception change for me. If this film can do one thing, and that is, if we can get 1 million people or 2 million people, 10 million people to watch this thing, they're not going to watch it and walk. It won't be in theaters, but walk away from their streaming device and think the same about people with developmental disabilities. They're going to think differently, and they're going to think a lot more positively. And they're going to walk by somebody with Down syndrome in the street, or they're going to walk by somebody who has autism or something, or they're going to work with somebody, or they're going to be waited on by somebody, or they're going to, all these things are going to happen. And now there's a whole different perception that they're going to have around that, and appreciation for it. That's
awesome. Awesome. We've got just a few final questions to kind of reflect on our time together here before let you both get back to the rest of your evening. I still have one more episode to record before I can actually eat my dinner tonight.
Jeez.
I know.
You're Hamilton, man. You are nonstop.
The work that I go to for all of you listeners. Anyways, if you want to give me a copy, SpecialChronicles.com/donate.
Yes.
Yes. How has the journey for both Rob, you and Nick? I don't know if I don't know who wants to go first, but how has this journey of the Improvaneer Method changed both of you personally?
Nick,
ooh, good question. Personally, it's gonna change my life. Because the reason why I'm saying that will change my life is because I came a long way. I came a long way because I am full of entertainment. I am full of motivation. My dad is my dad is Doyle. He is an incredible drummer and a lead singer. He's been in a bunch of bands long time ago. He used to be on tour as well. My brother Tim, incredible singer-songwriter. Play guitar. He sings. I was right behind him, had my first paid gig with him at a local bistro, and I played the drums right behind him. And I used to travel with him as well. And unfortunately, my brother got taken off the surf. It hit me hard, hit my mom and dad hard, my sisters hard, but he's more than a just brother. He's my best friend and my hero, and I looked up to him. I wanted him to be my best man in my wedding someday, but yeah. But here I am touring with the Improvaneers, burn the script, and I'm gonna burn every bridges in my bones down, and I'm going to make these people realize what they're in for, and that is comedy.
Awesome. I don't know how you could follow that, Rob, but how has this journey changed you?
Well, I think you've heard from me probably. I mean, my thoughts. It's changed me. Oh, for the better. It's. I said we just got off of. We were at the Best Buddies conference, and the theme was Wicked, the musical, and there's a song in there like, "How have you been changed?" And it's like, I have been changed for good. And I've been changed for the better. So it's still in my mind of all this, but 100%. I mean, just the birth of Henry, really changed me. I'll have friends that will go like, BH and AH. So they'll be like BH Rob and AH Rob, which is before Henry Rob and after Henry Rob. And I'm sure my comedy before Henry was a lot more, cynical and maybe cutting a little bit, sharp. And then afterwards, I just have a much larger sense of like people and inclusion and, compassion and appreciation, I think, for people, all people. I've become someone who really wants to make sure that everybody's included in this world in whatever capacity that they're able to be included, that everybody has gifts, that everybody was born, nobody, some people say, oh, I got born in this family, or I got born with these gifts, and, good for you, but you just got born. You didn't, don't act like you're better than somebody because you were just born and they were just born as that person, and quit acting like, you're more special on this earth, and you're not. So I don't know. That's sort of a weird way to answer your question, but I mean, that's what I think of though, is just this idea of inclusion and appreciation for all people and all abilities. I really want to probably explore that. One of the things I want to do, maybe next, is explore all the abilities of individuals with disabilities, because people think disabilities are, Down syndrome or, cerebral palsy or, whatever it is, or you see somebody in a wheelchair, or you see somebody who's blind or who's deaf, who has autism, has a speech impediment, and they see that as a disability, but nobody focuses on what are the abilities of those people. You know what I mean? And so, for example, like the things that Nick brings into this world, just incredible. You meet Nick, everybody who meets Nick, they're immediately changed. They're happier. They're so much happier because they met Nick. I mean, this Best Buddies conference that we were just at, these individuals, all kids really, who've given their time to understand what inclusion means. There's 3,000 kids there. You've been there. They're all going to grow up with that sense of that, which is really cool. And, we interviewed Anthony Shriver too, and he talked about that and that legacy, and that all these people who've chosen to become buddies with somebody, well, that's a great thing to do. But the learning between both parties in that is incredible. Like they learn from them as much as they learn from each other. They just learn, and they're being taught at all times. So that's what I want to leave in this world. You know what I mean?
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Before we get to the final message and final thoughts question, as we come to a close in the final 5 minutes here, where can our listeners find out more about the Improvaneer Method, the film, and just to see you on tour. For those of you that I'm sure you guys for those of you listening in, could be listening in from anywhere across the globe, across the country. But if you are listening and you are here in Chicago, where I am based, or if you want to come fly to well, by the time you hear this, if you can fly to Chicago in a few days, where can our listeners find out more about the Improvaneer Method and this film?
So Improvaneermethod.com gets you a lot of information. I think most of everything we do gets put on there. Certainly how to contact us. I'm Rob at theimprovaneermethod.com. Nick is Nick at theimprovaneermethod.com. So really easy to reach us. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, the majors. And it's all usually under the Improvaneer Method. You'll find us pretty easily, or we've started new pages under the Improvaneer Film. It's called the Improvaneers Film. And so you can really be updated on what we're doing film-wise. On the website, if you go under Performance Series, you'll see all of what Nick's doing from a performance standpoint, his one-man show, what we're doing, with the troupe, how to get in touch with us about performing. You'll see videos, highlights, all that stuff. And then you'll see it's called Burn the Script. You'll see a page for Burn the Script. So you can look at that in detail and really see, what we're doing for the film.
Awesome. So for those of you watching the video podcast, you see it going across the bottom of your screen right now, the improvaneermethod.com. But if you're listening to the audio podcast, we'll put that link in the description notes below on SpecialChronicles.com and wherever you get your podcasts. And I should always remind all of you listening, if you are driving or walking or whatever, do look down at the notes when it's safe to do so, not when you're driving, because we don't want you to crash when you're listening to this podcast.
Please don't.
Yeah, please don't. So, with what's one message that Rob and Nick that you hope that listeners will remember from hearing the episode, hearing this conversation today, and as well as follow that up with any final thoughts in your overall time here today on the Special Chronicles podcast. Nick, your first time, and now Rob, your 3-time guest. But what's one message that you hope listeners will get, and then your final thoughts on coming on the program today?
Guys, being on this podcast with you, I'll give you 5 stars. By the way, you were great. But my final message for everybody that's listening and watching this podcast: don't change for no one. Your dreams will come true. But truth be told, we're not going to stop. We're going to keep filming.
Awesome. And Rob?
When Nick says we're not going to stop, I can't do any better than that. We're not going to stop. That's it, man. We're in this for the long haul, and we've got a lot to do here. So that's it.
Absolutely. Well, we've got one final question, because we of course want you all listening to be entertained and informed by listening to this podcast, but we want you to take inclusion and bring inclusion into your communities, into your towns, into your workplaces, just like Rob and Nick are doing with the Improvaneer Method. We want you to bring inclusion into your community. So this final question will help you all to do just that. And we've got a bumper, so let's go ahead and roll the bumper.
We're not just athletes.
We are the ambassadors of an uprising. Peaceful protesters.
In a rebellion against anyone
who has a fear of difference.
Difference.
Our demands are
equality,
dignity,
and the recognition of our
shared humanity. We will not stop
or accept anything less.
Today, our world is
more divided than ever.
And coming together has never been more urgent.
The revolution is inclusion. Find out more at jointherevolution.org.
So ever since I attended the 2019 Special Olympics World Games in Abu Dhabi, I've been asking this final question because gets to the heart of what we want our listeners to take away from. One of these days, we should do a whole episode where we hear answers to this question from all of the guests for the past few years. But just like I've done in the past, and Rob, I don't know if you were on the program before 2019 or not, because I might have started asking this final question after the other 2 times you were on. But anyways, what does inclusion mean to both of you?
Go, Rob.
Inclusion is just not only letting people in, but expecting people to be in, expecting all types. Because who's to let people in? You're not special to let somebody in. You don't get to let somebody in. Everybody should just be in there, period. So inclusion means that everybody's accepted, in the room. But I think that's it. Everybody's accepted in the room, and everybody's fine with that. There aren't people who have problems with that.
Awesome.
So inclusion means to me is we are not going to be limited. We are in this together. We are in this as a family. And we're more than that. We're going to be people who brings improvisation in. And we are the ones that will guide you. And we will help each other out. Because I am your guidance leader. And you're big in this together for the long haul.
Awesome. Well, that's a perfect way to wrap up. Thank you again, Rob and Nick. I know this has been an hour and a half, but very informative. For those of you that are tuning in, hopefully you guys, hopefully you all are listening to this when you all are driving or to go see the Improvaneers on tour, hopefully in Chicago. And Rob, we'll definitely have to talk off air about coming out to see you guys in Chicago and maybe doing a podcast segment before you guys hit the stage. So we'll definitely have to talk about that off mic. But thank you again, Rob and Nick, for coming on the Special Chronicles podcast.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. And that's a wrap on another powerful episode of the Special Chronicles podcast. A huge thank you to Rob Snow and Nick Doyle for sharing the story behind the Improvaneers and the life-changing Improvaneer Method. If today's episode has empowered you, has inspired you, make sure to share this episode with a friend, subscribe to the podcast, follow us, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're grateful for the continued support of our sponsors, ComEd's Energy Force Program and United Airlines Bridge Disability Business Resource Group. So you can learn more at SpecialChronicles.com. You can find today's show notes and more at SpecialChronicles.com. Until next time, take care, and remember, we are more alike than different, and choose to include. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Special Chronicles Podcast. Our podcast was produced by Daniel Smrokowski on the Special Chronicles Network. Follow Special Chronicles on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Subscribe, rate, and review Special Chronicles on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Our website, SpecialChronicles.com, where you can stream our archives of over 500 episodes for free. Also, there's a list of our favorites, original series, award-winning columns, and blogs. And sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive bonus content delivered to your inbox. Again, SpecialChronicles.com. Special Chronicles is hosted by Podbean Podcast Hosting. Our live streams are powered by StreamYard. Thanks, as always, to our business manager, Adam Smrokowski, who always encourages us to never give up. I'm Daniel Smrokowski, back next week with more stories.
Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.